This could change everything for Gary Trent Jr. as well as his future with the Toronto Raptors because, as everyone knows, the Raptors had three major free agents entering this season. Obviously, two of them being Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, who ended up getting traded because of their impending unrestricted free agency. Well, Gary Trent Jr. is also a part of that group as his contract is up come this summer. And Gary Trent Jr. is a guy that, given his three-point shooting, given his age at just 25 years old, is a player that a lot of Toronto Raptors fans thought could be an interesting piece for this team long term. However, given his performance this season, particularly on the defensive end, some regressions there, offensively, his points per game being down, a lot of people have speculated that he has lost a significant amount of money in whatever contract, whatever team he ends up signing to. And, just the communication from Webster, from Masai Ujiri during those trade deadline press conferences, they're saying they're going to evaluate Gary Trent Jr. to see how he fits on this team long term. However, there's been a recent development over the past few games, particularly since the All-Star break, that we've seen from Gary, which could really affect his future with this team. And no, it's not on the offensive end. Gary Trent Jr. was not good to start off this season shooting the basketball, at least in terms of his own standards, but has turned things around in terms of his three-point shooting percentage. I mean, this season, right, Gary Trent Jr. shooting 41% behind the three-point line. I think it was a ridiculous number, especially in January, because it's come down back to earth a little bit, but still, over 41% behind the three-point line is really good. And if you look at his stats, again, his points have certainly regressed. Only 12 points per game here now at this point. Hasn't taken any jumps in rebounding, assists, but his minutes per game are also down so far this year. But his efficiency has gone up a decent amount. I mean, his effective field goal percentage is the highest it's been, since his second year in the NBA career. Obviously, he was more of a role player there at that point, but I guess he's still kind of a role player. His free throws percentage has gone down, but he is a guy that's become a little bit more efficient, even though his buckets, in terms of points, has dropped from 2 seasons ago being at 18 points per game, on a team that was pretty good, fifth seed in the Eastern Conference, right, to last year, 17 points per game, a little step down, and then didn't take the leap, but took a significant step back under Darko's new system. Less minutes, especially where Darko likes guys that can swing the ball, make some good plays, make some good decisions, right? Set up to players. So Gary's not a playmaker in those lines. He's a playmaker for himself. He can create his own shot, but he's not going to be getting a bunch of dimes for your team. So that's fallen at him out of favor a little bit in Darko's system. We see how well the ball's moving in wins and losses right now for Darko Rajakovic teams, but that's led to the points per game be going down as well. So Gary Trent Jr. is a guy that offensively, again, there's some positives in efficiency, but hasn't taken by any means a leap that Raptors fans are hoping for, and the points per game's total has certainly regressed. And then defensively, because Gary has been a guy that has been talked about as, hey, in the past, he wants to be a DPOY candidate. He said that in multiple off seasons over the past couple of years. Nick Nurse has talked about how he wants to unlock Gary Trent Jr. in the defensive end. He's, athletic, and we'll talk about some of his stats previously over the course of his career, but this season his defensive numbers just haven't been that great from the eye test and the advanced stats. I mean, his defensive box plus minus is in the negatives, which hasn't been the case for the past 2 seasons with the Toronto Raptors. His defensive win shares, again, it's not a full season yet, so you can't quantify that too well here, but the stats aren't liking, the advanced stats aren't liking Gary Trent Jr. on the defensive end so far this season. But since the All-Star break, because I'd say since the new year, Gary Trent Jr.'s turned things around on the offensive end. His efficiency's gone up. He's been hitting a high clip of his three-point shots. Arguably one of the Raptors' best definitely arguably one of the best, if not the best Raptors three-point shooter so far this season. So, at least since the new year. But Gary Trent Jr. defensively, as we saw from the advanced stats, as anyone that's been watching the team saw, he doesn't have that same energy, that same passion that we've seen from Gary Trent Jr., getting into passing lanes, being a focal point on that defensive end. But as of late, people have been taking notice because Gary Trent Jr. has been taking more passion, more intense defensive assignments, especially with OG Anunoby gone, and he's done a pretty good job. I mean, over the past 2 games, the primary defender on 2 all-star point guards and Tyrese Haliburton and Trae Young. Tyrese Haliburton went 2 of 11 from the field, 1 turnover, -16. Trae Young, 4 of 13 from the field, and 4 turnovers, a -6. And again, plus minuses don't really matter, but Raptors also got a couple of wins in those games, and obviously those are 2 key pieces on the other team's sort of offensive end that Gary Trent Jr. did a really good job in stopping. And people are looking at this and just overall the visually, how more intense he's looked out there on the court, just moving his feet, getting some deflections, picking off loose balls. It's something that Raptors fans have been confused why he's taken a step back specifically in that area, because defense, effort, energy, hustle, that's controllable. Those are things that you can, obviously you need athleticism, you need these types of things. But Gary Trent Jr. has done that. He hasn't, gained a bunch of weight or lost a bunch of weight that really affect his ability to perform on the defensive end. But he's taken a little bit of a step back. But now the eye test is showing that Gary Trent Jr. is stepping it up a little bit on that level. And it's frankly one of the reasons I was extremely high on Gary Trent Jr.'s just ability to be a key piece on this Raptors team long term, because we know he can make shots. We know he can be a three-point shooter, but he looked like a guy that could seamlessly fit on the defensive end as well. And it's not just me. It's not just a certain segment of Raptors fans that sort of believe this. I mean, in 2021, again, early in a season, he was third on the Defensive Player of the Year ladder, right? We saw him. He was top 5 in deflections in the 2021-2022 season, to end off that year. And then he was also third in terms of steals per game. Again, deflection, steals, they're a bit of glamour stats out there, in the defensive end. It's not completely everything when you're looking at defensive capabilities, but definitely a guy that's been a disruptor at the point of attack, at the defensive end for the Toronto Raptors. And it's something we haven't really seen from him so far this season. It's been more so regarded or relegated in terms of fan opinion, I guess front office opinion as well. It's rather a budding sort of 3-and-D player in the NBA to, especially, November, December, times of the season, an inconsistent three-point shooter that doesn't show a lot of passion and a lot of energy on the defensive end. So now that Gary Trent Jr. seems to be locked in a little bit more, having that same sort of mentality, that same sort of approach, again, a small sample size, but he seems to be locking in on that defensive end. It's going to change the perspective. It's going to change the opinions of Toronto Raptors fans and their hopes of keeping Gary Trent Jr. around long term. Now, we just heard a report recently, a couple days ago, about how the Raptors, as well as Gary Trent Jr., there's been no real clear asks, no real clear price in terms of what Gary Trent Jr. is going to command out there on the open market, what he's hoping for, what the Raptors would be willing to offer him here now at this point. Whereas Kelly Olynyk as well as Emmanuel Quickley seem to have deals or structures of deals already in place, so it's likely that they're going to be on this team long term. But Gary Trent Jr., there's a big question mark, and I think, again, we know he can shoot, we know he's a little bit inconsistent, but the months of January, February have really indicated to Raptors, or Masai Ujiri in the front office, it doesn't really matter what Raptors fans think, but basically that he's going to be a capable three-point shooter. He's not going to be a guy that's out of the league by any means. He's going to be able to space the floor for whatever team he's on next, whether it's the Raptors or some other team in the NBA. But defensively is really where his potential sort of, can be taken to the next level. I want to say fringe all-star, maybe like super ceiling. You could look at something like that. I remember the comparisons to Bradley Beal and stuff in the past. I think those ships have sailed, but a guy that's a very, very good starter in the NBA to a guy that's just, your run-of-the-mill three-point shooter that's a bit of a liability on defense and then doesn't really create, doesn't really do a whole lot else out there on the offensive end. Those are the two trajectories for Gary Trent Jr. However, if that defense, deflections, steals, getting in passing lanes, again, he can be overly aggressive at times, for these Toronto Raptors groups. That was one of the criticisms, and he's definitely dialed that back. I think he dialed it back a little bit too much on the defensive end, again, mostly from the eye test, but Gary Trent Jr., if he's able to be not just a plus defender, but one of the better on-ball sort of shooting guard defenders in the NBA, that's a player I want on this Raptors team. He fits perfectly around a Scottie Barnes, around an RJ Barrett in terms of being a guy that can hold his own on defense and space the floor for the guys and collect the passes from those dudes, especially Scottie Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley, right, to, knock down those open shots, especially from the corners from different spots around the court, and then, just be those floor savers, what we're hoping Grady Dick sort of develops into. So, again, the money's going to be interesting. If he plays better, he's going to command more money, so that's something you do have to sort of gauge and sort of work with, if you're going to be giving him a contract as his impending free agency is coming. But I don't know. I'm a fan of Gary Trent Jr. Again, the old star boy Gary Trent Jr. I'm rooting for him. He's a fun guy to sort of cheer for. He has explosive moments, but again, we want him locked in on the defensive end, and if he's able to sort of perform on that end of the court, then things could be really good for the Toronto Raptors. We have another sort of young player we can look as a factor for the future. But let me know what you guys think about Gary Trent Jr.'s development in the comment section down below. Do you think this could change everything for Gary? I want to hear your thoughts. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.